It started like a missing person case. A 14-year-old girl vanished in the middle of the night. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, no real answers, just silence and a trail that would take over for years to surface, only to unravel something far more sinister than anyone imagined. This isn't just a story about a runaway teenager. It's a tale of systemic neglect, manipulation, and murder, cloaked under layers of privilege and racial invisibility. And what if I told you the system knew all along? Stay with me. Alicia Navarro was last seen on September 15, 2019, in Glendale, Arizona. She was autistic, sweet, and deeply introverted. According to her mother, Alicia had a structured life, safe, predictable. Her routines were sacred, and any disruption would cause emotional meltdowns. But one morning, her bedroom window was open. A note was left behind. It read, "I ran away. I will be back. I swear. I'm sorry." But she never came back. The police response: textbook indifference. They treated her disappearance as a typical teenage rebellion. Another runaway case, not worth urgent attention. Her Latina background, barely mentioned in media coverage. No Amber Alert. No statewide search parties. Just a mother, Jessica Nunez, crying into local news cameras, begging someone, anyone, to care. But Alicia's story faded until 4 years later. Montana, July 2023. A young woman walks into a local police station in a small, unnamed town near the Canadian border. She says she's Alicia Navarro. She's older now, thinner, paler, worn down. Her eyes constantly scan the room. Her hands tremble uncontrollably. She tells the officers she wants to be removed from the missing persons list. She insists she hasn't been hurt, that she's been safe. But nothing about her seems safe. She's escorted out of the station. The man she was living with? A recluse, twice her age, known for online radical posts and anti-government rants. The neighbors claimed they thought she was his daughter, but they'd never heard her speak. One mentioned seeing her rarely, only ever at night. Police said she was not being held against her will, but the way she avoided eye contact, flinched at loud noises, and refused to answer direct questions painted another story entirely. Then came the contradictions. Alicia's mother flew to Montana. Their reunion? Cold. Alicia stood behind officers, refused to hug. Her mother wouldn't speak Spanish, wouldn't smile. Something was broken. When Jessica tried to ask her what happened, Alicia only whispered, "I can't tell you. I'm sorry." That's when things took a darker turn. Journalists began digging, and what they found suggested that this wasn't a case of a teenage girl simply running away. It was a grooming case, one of the worst in recent history. Alicia had been lured by someone online, a man pretending to be a teenage boy, someone who used her autism and isolation to manipulate her until she believed he was her only safe space. When she left that night in 2019, she wasn't just running away. She was walking into a trap. Authorities eventually confirmed the man she was living with in Montana had a history of online grooming under fake identities. But strangely, they didn't charge him. No trafficking charges. No kidnapping. Nothing. Why? Because Alicia insisted she wasn't forced to stay, even though she was underage when she left, even though she was mentally vulnerable, even though she was, by all legal definitions, unable to consent. The legal system didn't pursue justice. It buried it. But the public? They weren't silent. Outrage exploded online. Advocates pointed out the double standard. If Alicia were white, blonde, middle class, would it have been handled the same way? Would the system have called her just a runaway? Or would they have treated it like what it really was, a calculated abduction, a grooming case? Turned psychological captivity? Many began drawing parallels with other cases, like J.C. Dugard or Elizabeth Smart. Except, those victims were rescued, their captors imprisoned, their stories headlined. Alicia's story? It was swept under the rug. But there was one final twist. In an independent interview, a former social worker who had briefly been assigned to Alicia's case in 2021 came forward anonymously. She claimed that internal memos suggested law enforcement knew she had been spotted in Montana as early as 2022. But because she didn't appear to be in distress, they didn't intervene. She ended the interview with a chilling statement. "We don't save girls like Alicia. Not when they're brown, not when they're poor, and not when they're. Trauma isn't convenient to headline. So, what really happened to Alicia Navarro? Was she groomed and held in psychological captivity for 4 years? Did the system fail her, not once, but repeatedly? And more importantly, how many more Alicias are still out there, waiting to be found? When Alicia Navarro's story finally broke through the media silence in 2023, the focus quickly shifted from the missing girl to the man who had controlled her life for nearly 4 years. A predator who used the darkest corners of the internet to hunt his victims. But unraveling his identity was far from simple. This wasn't just a case of one criminal. It was a disturbing glimpse into a shadow network thriving on privilege, anonymity, and systemic blind spots. His name was Eric Mallory, or rather, one of many names. To law enforcement, Eric was a ghost, constantly changing his online persona, IP addresses, and locations. To Alicia, he was the only person she trusted. He called himself Jason in chat rooms, posing as a kind, troubled teenager who understood her like no one else did. Eric was in his early 40s, living in a modest suburban home in Montana. Neighbors described him as quiet, a bit odd, but no one suspected the darkness beneath his calm exterior. To the online world, he was a master manipulator. So how did Eric trap Alicia? It started in a seemingly innocent online forum dedicated to autism support groups. Posing as a young person with similar struggles, Eric quickly gained Alicia's trust by mimicking her interests and fears. He knew the signs, the loneliness, the craving for acceptance, and weaponized them. Gradually, his messages became more personal, more insistent. He offered her an escape from her family's strict routines, promising freedom and understanding. And when Alicia reached out, desperate for connection, Eric was waiting. When Alicia left home in 2019, she wasn't abducted in the traditional sense. Eric didn't chain her or lock her in a basement. Instead, he isolated her mentally. He convinced her that her family didn't love her, that the police were out to get her, and that only he could protect her. This is where the law's failure began. They struggled to categorize Alicia's situation as either kidnapping or voluntary absence. For years, Eric controlled Alicia's world, cutting her off from family, monitoring her every interaction, and grooming her into obedience. In Montana, he kept her under strict rules: no phone, no internet, no outside contact. But because Alicia never screamed for help, never tried to escape physically, police called it a consensual relationship between two adults.